Hello and welcome to another weekly update, and again another week where I can barely see my notes on my laptop, but I don't mind that at all. Actually, it's lovely to have this weather, and you got to make the most of it getting outside. So yeah, apologies, I think the shadows are all wrong, and the background noise is probably all wrong, but hey, it's lovely when the weather's like this, I think, especially in the UK, because we do not get enough of it. Anyway, it's been probably I'd say relatively quiet week in the world of sort of development around Teams and Skype for Business and Office 365 and all those sort of things. I think there's been plenty going on. Certainly on the Teams side, we've had all the news around like a free version of Teams. We've had direct routing as well last week, and there's plenty going on, but it doesn't really impact sort of developers too much, as there's not that much news being pushed forward on the development front at the moment. I think that's natural. It's it's the kind of slow time of year. It's the summertime. We just had July 4th over in the States, and that tends to have a kind of dampening effect on everything. So there's still plenty of things happening across the spectrum though, and there's three things I'd like to talk to you about today and sort of mention. The first is a blog post from the Bot Framework team, and I really like the blogs that come out of the Bot Framework team. Actually, I think I've said this before, but they're very they're very good at focusing in on real problems that people are having, and then how to fix them using the Bot Framework, and that's definitely the case here. So this is a problem I've seen using the Bot Framework, and it's around greeting messages. So when you, as a user, when you first add a bot, you first add them to your channel or your team or whatever, there's an initial welcome or initial greeting message, and actually when you submit to store, they push you to have a welcome message. They think it's an important part of the process, and I think it is. It's it's good. There's a weird, bug's the wrong word, but like there's a weird effect that happens with the emulator, because the emulator sets up both sides of the conversation instantly, because it is just emulating the flow. There's things you could do in the emulator with the conversation update around kind of getting key information about the person you're welcoming, so you can talk to them, that actually you can't do in the real world. So actually you test a load of stuff in the emulator around doing these welcome messages, and it's fine and it works just great, and then you push it out to the real world and find that it doesn't work, and that's frustrating, and it can be hard to understand why until you dig into it. And then there's data there. Once you understand the flow and you go through the flow, then it sort of makes sense, but if you don't have the time to do that, then it doesn't. So that's actually all explained in this blog post, and they go through why it's a problem, what the emulator does, what happens in the real world, and then come up with a solution for how you can solve that and what you can do about it. So that's excellent. I think that's really good. Like I say, this is a problem I've seen before, so it's definitely a problem that's in the wild, and it's great that the Bot Framework team are kind of proactively kind of coming at you and saying, look, you're going to find this problem, you're going to see this out in the wild, so this is how you can solve it. So that's a good blog post. Definitely recommend you give that. If you're writing any kind of any bots at the moment on Bot Framework, then you'll know. If you don't know, when you come to submit to store, they like you to have a welcome message. So this is a problem you're going to have. All right, so flipping over to Microsoft Graph, and it's time for another community call. So every Tuesday of the month, the Microsoft Graph team publish a community call. They have it live, you can join it live, but I normally get the recordings, and the latest one is just out. Now, I've said this before, but the Graph community calls, they're worth catching up on, because so much stuff is happening in Graph, and that impacts everything that happens across Skype for Business and Teams at the moment. So Graph is fast becoming the place where developers get their information about 365. So if you want to interact with 365, if you want to take data out of 365, if you want to impact like actions and things on your 365 tenant, everything like that, it's all happening through Graph. So understanding and knowing what is going on with Graph at the moment is really important, and it's a really important tool to have in the chest. So it's worth going through going through the call and seeing what's being talked about. There's some good stuff in there actually. There's Jeremy Thake. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce his surname. Sorry, Jeremy. I have heard you on the podcast before, and so I do know how your name is pronounced. It just doesn't come to me right now. I might be right, who knows. Yeah, he does a good introduction to Graph as well on the call, and then there's talk about Power Apps and Flow, some adaptive card stuff, which is interesting. It crosses over into that bot framework type thing, and then some stuff about OpenAPI as well. So definitely worth catching up on that if you can as well. And then the other interesting thing to talk about is the Office 365 Global Developer Bootcamp. So this was done last year and it was hugely successful. It's now becoming an annual event, so that's pretty good. So it's going to be completely free, and it's a one-day hands-on, it's a kind of training hack day, kind of a training event. It's run by Microsoft MVPs, it's supported by Microsoft, and the idea is really it's for developers everywhere, it's all over the world, and it's all about Office 365. So it's understanding the things you can do with 365, understanding things you can do with Graph, things you can do with Teams, add-ins, connectors, how you can tie all those things together to really, make some compelling solutions. It's going to take place between October the 1st and November the 30th this year. Different bootcamp events are going to happen all over the world during that period of time. So there's a link you can go to. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, so you can find out where it's happening in your area near you. So it's absolutely worth attending. It's absolutely worth, if you're a part of a development team, get everyone together, go down for the day. Like I say, it's a free event, so the only thing you have to try and get signed off for is expense and time. So it's absolutely worth doing. If you do anything with Office 365, if you do anything kind of on the Microsoft stack, then this is definitely worth going to check out and look at. And it's good to see Microsoft doing these kind of these developer kind of outreach things like these bootcamp programs. It's excellent. It's good for the community, and it's good for developers everywhere. It keeps help keep everyone kind of up to date, because the pace of change is so quick. Stuff gets added all the time. I can barely keep up with what's going on with Graph. And Azure, I completely can't keep up with what's going on. It seems like every day new capabilities being rolled out to Azure, and it's getting like that with Graph as well. There's so much stuff you can do with Graph that you couldn't do even 6 months, a year ago. So these events are useful for just kind of getting the smart people who really do this stuff every day, being able to pump them for information, trying to do the things that are important to your business and to your kind of niche in your part of the world. And if you can't, you've got experts on hand to help you. It's a good time to do that, and find out what's new, find out different ways of working as well. So these bootcamp things are really good, so try and get to one of those if you can. So those are the kind of things I want to talk to you about this week, but for now I'm going to go back and enjoy the sun, I think, and I strongly suggest you do the same. So have an excellent week, and I will speak to you again next week.